FNAF World was a weird entry to the series, coming off the back of the final chapter of the games, and a book that unveiled the truth about the origins of Golden Freddy, albeit in an alternate reality. But despite having the edgiest FNAF teaser to this day, fans were furious with the animatronics going from creepy nightmare fuel to perhaps the most marketable designs yet. Just ask the bootleg sellers. Hello, my name is Jeff and welcome to FNAF Simplified, the series where we go game by game to solve the lore in its intended release with as few jumps as possible. After all, the pieces are in place for us. We just have to put them back together. For those who have not been blessed by the blinding beat 'em up that is FNAF World, let me catch you up. When you boot up the game for the very first time, you're met by this cutscene. A pair of pale yellow eyes warning us that something terrible has happened out there that's beginning to affect this quote-unquote sanctuary. We're not told what went wrong, but it's clear that it happened to the speaker. We then begin what seems to be a regular RPG, with Fredbear acting as our instructor, guiding us to bosses through fractures, glitchy passages to unreachable parts of the world, all in a bid to save animatronic Village-tronica? They're still working out, from what happened on the flip side. You then get to go around fighting a myriad of enemies, fighting and collecting animatronics from previous games, and buying upgrades with fast tokens. Following Fredbear's advice of playing the game normally will eventually lead to fighting Scott Cawthon, FNAF's developer, making this the most meta moment in the franchise where you must kill the storyteller to not only end the game, but the story as well. But like he says, this is definitely one way to bring the story to a halt. Surely there was a more satisfying end. And there is, the clock ending. If you wait a while after Fredbear's dialogue when encountering him, a glitched and distorted variation will appear, 8-bit Fredbear. Now whilst most people call him Glitch Fredbear or Sprite Fredbear, I prefer my name for him, Glitch Bear. Say whatever you want in the comments, it's a better name. Glitch Bear contradicts regular Fredbear every point, telling us that there is a task to do, that we need to leave breadcrumbs for him and to find the clocks. To set the clocks, you have to play similar minigames to ones required to get the good ending in FNAF 3. Perhaps we're setting his spirit free, just like we did as the puppet in Happiest Day. Speaking of Happiest Day, each of the 5 clocks appear to represent how you get to each of the 5 minigames to complete Happiest Day. Putting Balloon Boy into a box in FNAF World, double clicking a Balloon Boy poster in FNAF 3. Putting 4 cupcakes into 4 boxes in FNAF World, clicking 4 cupcake posters in FNAF 3. Putting a Bonnie into a box in FNAF World, double clicking a Bonnie on a boxy desk. Okay, that's a slight push. FNAF World just really likes boxes, I guess. As you go around finding the clocks, you'll start to realise you're not setting clocks. You're starting to set up Happiest Day. Once you've gotten all 5 clocks, like Fredbear, Glitchbear will direct you to fight Porkpatch to get the key, but unlike Fredbear, will discourage you from fighting the bosses. Attacking the game's security system will not accomplish anything. Get the key, ignore the Guardians. If you have succeeded in setting the clocks, your true goal will be revealed once you have the key. Obeying Glitchbear, you will discover a portal in Fazbear Hills, which upon entering will take you back to those mysterious eyes from the opening dialogue. They start to parrot the FNAF 4 ending before telling us the pieces are in place for us and to rest. All of this unlocks a trophy of one of the playable characters, Crying Child. Now despite sharing their name with one of our FNAF 4 protagonists, they look more in line with previous depictions of the dead children, which makes a lot of sense. The last time we saw CC, he was flatlining after being bitten by Fredbear. And sure, all the dead children in FNAF are crying, but that doesn't mean this is any specific one. But to that I say, what about the box? Now in FNAF 4 Simplified, I decided against talking about it. It just didn't really fit into my theory, and I kinda somewhat forgot about it before finalising the script. But I guess now that I brought it up, I kinda have to mention it here. After beating Night 7 in FNAF 4, your reward is this locked chest, with the legend, perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now. Scott Cawthon intended to open it in the Halloween update, but eventually he decided against it, and according to the game files, the same seems to have been the case for FNAF World, this time with an image of the box open and empty. Now I hear you in the back, let's cut content, that doesn't make this crying child, this crying child. And to that I say, surely you've realised what we've been collecting this whole game. The FNAF 4 box containing 10 Faz coins. So there you are, I solved the box, you're welcome theorists. Assuming these crying children are the one and the same crying child, what does that mean? Pretty much every major FNAF character, bar Phone Guy, perhaps the most important one, just so you realise that, like the most important FNAF character in the entire franchise so far, who has given us all the lore pretty much, is just neglected. It's here, plus references to previous Scott games. But why does that matter? Well, remember the context of the trophy. We recreate Happiest Day, albeit an altered version, pathing the way for an unnamed male character. Upon succeeding, we get the FNAF 4 ending, albeit an altered version, unlocking the Crying Child trophy and ending the game. And this Crying Child looks like this Crying Child, albeit an altered version. To me, this is us doing Happiest Day for the Crying Child after his death. Now whether this happens immediately after he dies, or if this is later in the timeline when the other spirits are set free in 2023, in FNAF 3, a lot of frees, I'm not sure. Fast Fredbear and Glitchbear guide you to these two main endings. There's 6 other possible endings. The first you're likely to come across gives you the security trophy. You select the normal difficulty and then pursue the boss fight with Alan Dude like Fredbear suggests, you'll be congratulated, or rather mocked. Congratulations, you beat an imaginary monster in an imaginary game without taking any risks and without finding anything interesting. On the easiest possible difficulty. It's a great job. I am still in control of you, and I say that you are finished here. You did away with a pretty powerful creation, but as for me, I remain out of your reach. But I believe a more generic and cliched statement of appreciation is in order for your lackluster accomplishment. The end. This seems more tongue-in-cheek than the endings we've come so far, a creative way to make you play FNAF World for many more hours as you have to do it all over again. Scott Cawthon, I found your genius. Perhaps the most likely to get next is Chipper's Revenge, depending how thoroughly you explore Mysterious Mine. Obviously, this is a reference to Chipper and Sons Lumco, one of Scott's previous games. Encountering him will instantly trigger a boss fight with his defeat, leading Chipper to lament his franchise being forgotten in favour of Five Nights at Freddy's. An ending you're rather unlikely to get though, is when you destroy their universe. No joke! If you equip Fredbear as your Team 1 Character 1 and go talk to Fredbear like normal, you cause the universe to end. Now whilst those are all rather jokey endings, there is more lore hiding in the endings of FNAF World. If you ignore Fredbear's warnings and travel through the layers of the subtunnels, you'll be met by Old Man Consequences, a red figure sat by a lake fishing. He explains your fate, inviting you as a Freddy variation to fish with him, since you have nowhere else to go. But this isn't strictly true. If you ignore Old Man Consequences after entering this 4th glitch and instead force your way into the lake, you can drown yourself, leading you to fall further and further and further down. Eventually you land on an ink blot test. So essentially we don't know what this actually is. The most common interpretations I've heard are an angel or a figure embracing 2 smaller people. I've also heard a man in armour. If someone can figure out how, please let me know. It's driving me crazy. So far I figured out this is like a helmet and not relevant to my point. Personally, I see a figure, likely a parent embracing 2 children, but who could this be? Well, the only parent we've seen so far in the series is Henry No Name, and whilst he did have 2 children, Charlotte and Sammy, Sammy was killed by Pub Guy in 1982. If Sammy's dead, then how can he be in Henry's embrace here? The Silver Eyes does explain that Henry killed himself after the missing children incident, so I guess you could argue that it's a flashback? That seems a bit stretchy, and I think Henry's elsewhere in FNAF World. After all, these flashing lights behind them would imply that some traumatic event has happened, and until Sammy's death, there shouldn't be any dramatic event. If you've beaten the game at least once, then on Halloween you have the option to visit Deskman at his home. He gives you a vague warning that something terrible is coming, and to come back later. Maybe he'll explain more. Upon leaving, you have a disheartened Fredbear meeting you, who laments FNAF World's flop and warns you that he has gone insane, making something that has everyone on edge. Reluctantly, he tells you that if you want to beat the unstoppable Guardian, you'll need characters you weren't meant to have. Characters that were sent away to have their code stripped for spin-off games, implying that FNAF World itself may be a video game within universe. Following Fredbear, you beat these spin-offs: Foxy Fighters, Foxy.exe, FNAF 57, Freddy in Space, and the dreaded Chica's Magic Rainbow.
Welcome to my happy fun Rainbow Land! Let's start with something simple. Oops! Simple for most people, I guess. I'm gonna kill you!
After these 3 minigames and hell, you manage to save Adam Dude, demoted after his defeat in the main game, as well as Jacko Bonnie, Jacko Chica, Nightmare Aeon, and Nightmare Balloon Boy, all 4 from FNAF 4's Halloween edition, Mr. Chipper and Coffee from previous Scott games, and finally, Purple Guy. Not to be confused with Purple Guy, as he stresses you realise. I mean, if you also shared a name with a child killer, would you want to be confused for them? Would? Sicko! Unlocking all 8 characters gives you a fighting chance in the final boss fight of the game against Purple Guy's Psych! The devil has not finished with you yet, giving you 3 minutes to kill Chica's Magic Rainbow, else be blasted to death with a rainbow cannon. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, this is still FNAF. Doing all of this eventually allows you to go back to Deskman, who reveals that he was the one to make those games, and in his insanity, he made someone called Baby, whom he seemingly regrets making. The lights go out, their eyes from the opening cutscene and clock ending, returning for the 3rd and final time.
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
We cut back to Deskman at his desk, forced to watch his blood spreading, unable to do anything. This Deskman, this is who I think Henry is, and these eyes, I think it's pretty safe to say that those are Baby's eyes. Baby being the eye seems pretty self-explanatory, with the eyes appearing after we find out about Baby as well as the feminine voice. But why do I think Henry's Deskman? After all, there's no name here and the Silver Eyes is an alternate universe. So what's my evidence for this? Well, we know Deskman made Baby, who judging by her voice lines is a robot of sorts, making Deskman a roboticist, just like Henry in the book. They're also killed by the hands of one of their creations, Henry making that robot to stab him to death after the MCI, Deskman seemingly killed by Baby. We don't know whether he was attacked or if he wanted Baby to kill him, but this still seems an important parallel to bring up. After all, as we established last episode, Silver Eyes parallels the games as opposed to being one-to-one with them, so as long as the key points are there, the smaller details aren't as important, although as with all theories, the more evidence, the better. So we know Deskman to be Henry and the eyes to be Baby, but what about the rest of our cast? According to the Halloween update, most characters in FNAF World are just game characters, with code that could be repurposed. Who's Glitch Bear, and who are we? Let's start with the latter, since it's surprisingly straightforward for a FNAF protagonist. When you enter the subtunnels, you'll see that we appear to be some form of Freddy. Well, that makes sense, right? We've been strolling around the dusting fields as Freddy this whole time after all. When you go somewhere that the storyteller didn't intend you to go, such as when you're setting up Happiest in the clocks, or when you pay Old Man Consequences a visit, you realise your sprite seems somewhat slumped. Remind me, how many bear characters in FNAF are slumped in this position? That's right, 2. Golden Freddy and Shadow Freddy. We don't really know anything about Shadow Freddy or what their motive could be, so it's unclear if they'd help out the crying child spirit, but I'm inclined to say they might not. During the Follow Me minigames, Shadow Freddy leads the ghosts of the missing children to their killer, William Afton, and whilst you could say Shadow Freddy knew it would lead to Afton's death, you'd think they'd have some form of doubts by the 3rd or so child. Not to mention, Shadow Freddy's attacks in FNAF World are some of the most aggressive, consisting of an instant kill, an instant kill, and a water hose. Hey, that's deadly to someone wearing a spring-lock suit. On the other hand, Golden Freddy is also one of the more mysterious characters in the franchise, but being possessed by one of the MCI victims, he's more likely to help the crying child than Shadow Freddy. Now, I do want to point out something Glitch Bear says at the beginning of the game. The truth is that there is no safe place. You don't understand that. You were made for one thing. This implies that we may have been created specifically to assist in the Happiest Day, but if so, that feels kind of unsatisfying. After all, if we are truly just a line of code, yet another entity made to complete a task, it feels kind of empty. And if we were made for one thing, then why can we break away from that singular task? As a program, we wouldn't be able to do that. Why can we go and fight the Guardians despite Glitch Bear specifically telling us not to? And if it's him calling the shots, surely he would be the one that we would be forced to listen to as a program. I think it really could be argued between these three answers, but Golden Freddy feels like the better candidates to me. Shadow Freddy and the artificial entity have explanations that work, but they feel too flimsy. Points that have against Golden Freddy are more like half points, ones that only work because we don't have enough information about them. If you guys have any evidence for or against Golden Freddy, or if you have a better candidate, let me know in the comment section. But for now, I'll be working off the basis that we played Golden Freddy in FNAF World, but the door is very much still open. After all, it's just a theory. And more of a hypothesis with a little evidence at that. Now on to Glitch Bear. Glitch Fredbear is harder to figure out since we don't actually know anything about him. We know he knows about and possibly how to do Happiest Day, but has to get us to set it in motion. He seems more aware than other characters with knowledge of what's happening with what he calls the Puppet Master, aka Anim Dude, as well as what's happening with the Crying Child Spirit and maybe even Baby. So not much to go off. And like the player, my answer is speculative and rickety at best. Out of all the characters established so far, I think the puppet is our best guess. Hey, at least I didn't jump to the book this time. William references Happiest Day and Silver Eyes. I totally could have made that work. No, I could not have. My main reason for the puppet being Glitch Bear is their involvement in Happiest Day. We've established that as Golden Freddy, we've been setting it up through the clocks. In episode 3, we said the puppet was the one who completed it. Then why would Golden Freddy be assisting them? Well, what if Golden Freddy as a spirit has a better connection to whatever FNAF World is? We know that from this Easter egg on Cam 8 that during FNAF 3 the puppet is still around as an animatronic, whilst Golden Freddy was always ghostly to begin with, but any physical body was likely destroyed along with the rest of the FNAF 1 crew, either in Follow Me or after the pizzeria's closure. We know that the animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 1 were all destroyed because they are all around Fazbear's Fright. And this is really reading into the lines, but in FNAF 2, Phone Guy refers to the puppet as always thinking, perhaps meaning it's more aware than the other animatronics. I told you it was rickety at best, but it's either that or we just don't have an answer yet. So now that we have a rough understanding of what seems to be happening here in FNAF World, how does that actually affect the timeline? Okay, so I'm having to record this a little while after everything else. I kinda underestimated how long the timeline is now. Like, for context, the unedited timeline portion is over half as long as the edited video. It's just not a good balance. So for the next 3 episodes, I'll just be covering the parts that matter to the actual game, the subject of the theory. So I guess I won't be seeing you for a while, DCI. But back to the original question. How does this affect the timeline? In the early 1980s, a child was locked outside Fredbear's family diner, popular for its state-of-the-art mascots, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. These costumes had retractable endoskeletons, allowing them to be worn by performers without looking any different to the audience. Unfortunately, the spring locks are extremely sensitive, with even moisture being able to trigger the locks, brutally killing the wearer. As the child waits to be let in, the co-owner of the establishment, William Afton, approaches him. Instead of letting the child in, however, Afton kills him in cold blood, dumping the corpse on the ground and driving away. Little did William know, however, the child would go on to later possess the puppet, a spindly animatronic created by William's own business. In 1983, what was intended as a mere prank goes horribly wrong as the child is shoved into Fredbear's mouth by his bullying brother and his cronies, resulting in the child's hospitalization and eventual death. This tragedy traumatizes the brother, leaving him with horrific nightmares that last well into his adult years, but leaves the crying child much worse. He was killed by Fredbear, but with his body removed before succumbing to his injuries, he is left unable to possess it, his spirit lost. With Fredbear's closing in the aftermath of the bite, Freddy Fazbear Pizza becomes the business's main venture, at least until disaster strikes again in the form of the missing children incident. William Afton, donning the retired spring bowling costume as to not be identified on the cameras, lured away 5 children, proceeding to kill them one by one, hiding their bodies in the animatronic band. Being one costume short, he stuffed the last one into the retired Fredbear suit. Just with the puppet outside Fredbear's, these victims' souls possess their new robotic prison, which they now continue to inhabit despite their new cycle of being taken apart and put back together again, over and over and over again. In 2023, Fazbear's Fright, a horror attraction themed off the blood-stained history of Freddy's, prepares for its opening week. Unbeknownst to the workers, the puppet returns to help the MCI victims once again, enlisting the aid of the Spirit and Fredbear, better known these days as Golden Freddy. They work to free the spirits from the animatronics, allowing them to move on. Puppet working from the real world, and Golden Freddy working from the spiritual world. Through FNAF World, Golden Freddy is able to reach out to the crying child, killed 40 years before in the Bite of 83, helping his spirit to move on while setting up the Happiest Day minigames for the puppet to complete in the real world. Between the two, they managed to finish Happiest Day, the spirits of the children fading away, finally being able to rest after decades of tears and bloodshed. So there you are, until I cover Sister Location. Obviously I missed a lot in that timeline, from Henry's existence, to William's death, to FNAF 2, just in general. But like I say, the take where I did go over all of that was a little under 15 minutes, and it's only getting longer with every game, so I probably won't do another full timeline check until about FNAF 6. Don't worry, I'll still do a mini timeline covering what's immediately important to the events of the game, like I did here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, if you did, consider subscribing for more FNAF Simplified and other news and theories. And if you're wondering where the footage came from for this video, watch the playlist on the left to watch my gameplay series of the FNAF World. I have no idea if I'm actually pointing to the left on the camera. I feel that's left, right? That might be the right. If you're wondering where the footage came from this video, watch the playlist on the right. Left? Right? The playlist hovering around somewhere. Click that playlist to see my gameplay series of FNAF World. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Good biz for now.